On October 11, 2019, police arrested 3 men and 1 woman for trafficking women from Slovakia to Glasgow and forcing them into prostitution and sham marriages. They were promised better lives and more stable work, but instead, these victims were trafficked to the United Kingdom and sold from £3,000 to £10,000. Another example, on November 1st, 2019, the Vietnamese police arrested 2 suspects for human trafficking. They were found guilty of putting 39 dead human bodies in a refrigerated tractor trailer in England. There are a lot of cases for human trafficking today, and it is a big world crisis. But do people understand the significance of human trafficking and have any knowledge about it? Let's see.
Using humans, usually women or men, but them being used against their will for purposes such as sex or domination or torture, etc.
The movement of people against their will, usually for the purposes of money.
Pretty much sold into child labor or slave labor or used for someone else's forms of sexual gratification, and this is their lifestyle from this point until they die.
7,000?
我认为中国在案的话会比美国更多一点，因为我觉得中国大概有记录的会有大概2万起左右，美国会有1万。
But Mexico?
Some Middle Eastern region.
I'm sure it's a country that's relatively familiar, but I honestly couldn't say.
My guess is it's like a city, like one of the coastal cities where it's easy to get to. I mean, where it's sort of like a port of entry. Yeah, but I could be off with that. It could be surprising. So maybe New York, maybe Los Angeles or San Francisco or one of those cities.
And
I'd guess probably either Chicago or LA.
Chicago, LA, New York, one of those three.
I would probably say that the difference in my mind is probably 4 females per 1 male. I genuinely don't know how I came by that number. It just, in my mind, it seems like it works. However, I do realize that I could be very, very off.
我觉得男女在这个人口贩卖的情况下，女性估计会比男性多，因为男性基本上人口贩卖就是劳力、劳工，女性大概就是有可能跟性跟生殖有关系的，所以我觉得大概是男女比例有3:7，女性是7，男性是3。
Injustice.
Disgusting.
Concealed.
human trafficking is usually defined as the action or practice of illegally transporting people from one country or area to another, typically for the purposes of forced labor or sexual exploitation. Around 50,000 victims get trafficked into the U.S. every year. Internationally, 72% victims of human trafficking are women, and 28% victims are men. In the United States, 87% victims of human trafficking are women, and 13% victims are men. Almost 20% of all trafficking victims are children in the world. The most common form of human trafficking is sexual exploitation. The second most common one is forced labor. However, oftentimes, the human traffickers get away with their crimes because of crowded place in public areas like cities or highways.
Human trafficking has affected the world in regard to economy, health, security, human rights, and overall morality. If human trafficking occurs in a country, especially in a developing country, a country tends to lose remittances, which hinders development. Furthermore, the expense to which trafficking victims and their countries are exploited is innumerable. due to being heavily based on exploiting and taking full advantage of those who are treated as less than a person. Slaves and traffic victims tend to share some experiences. In being kidnapped, depending on if they are trafficking internationally, both groups are exposed to injury, disease, and death caused by overcrowded and unsanitary conditions. They both also endure these conditions with little sustenance, at times none, which increases the risk of disease and its spreading among them. Trafficking victims' health is at stake due to high likelihood of being exposed to all sorts of STDs, not to mention the sexual, physical, and mental abuse victims endure.
The worst country for human trafficking is Eritrea, which is in Northeast Africa, while the worst state for human trafficking in the United States is the District of Columbia. Why is human trafficking so prevalent in these places? First, the punishments for human trafficking are not intense enough. Human traffickers only need to be arrested about 3 to 10 years, while enslavement is ruled as imprisonment of 7 to 16 years, which is much more stringent. Human traffickers have a difficult time controlling themselves without serious and harsh penalties. Moreover, there are no public announcements or media presentations about human trafficking in Eritrea, so it is not necessarily being discouraged. People cannot find any anti-trafficking education campaigns there. Poverty is another reason that human trafficking is so prevalent in certain areas. In fact, one man in Eritrea's military said, "I was put in indefinite military service and my family was starving to death as a result." Poverty pushed them to move to another country to find a better life, but it turns out that they became victims of human trafficking.
Human trafficking is a much bigger issue than we know. Just because we do not see it in our everyday life, it does not mean that it is not a prominent issue. Education is the first step to ending human trafficking and helping the victims who have suffered. Be an aware and informed consumer and ask who picked your fruits and vegetables. Human trafficking is not just limited to sex. Learn the signs of human trafficking and be aware of people who might be in a dangerous situation. Some signs include living with an employer, signs of physical abuse, being submissive, or any other suspicious behavior. Lastly, get involved. While being educated is a step in the right direction, nothing beats direct action. There are multiple organizations in Boston dedicated to putting a stop to human trafficking, like All Hands In, My Life, My Choice, and Massachusetts Coalition to End Human Trafficking. Organizations such as My Life, My Choice is more focused on aftercare for youth, while organizations such as All Hands In and Massachusetts Coalition to End Human Trafficking are more focused on providing educational awareness to the public in order to prevent, identify, and end human trafficking. Regardless, all are easy to get involved in. You do not have to go to rallies or volunteer, but even donations and raising awareness help. Do not let such a significant problem be swept under the rug. Through taking action, you have the power of lending a small hand to help stop this pressing issue.